I'm just having a look around the farm today. It's the end of the week. I just want to have a quick look around to see how crops are looking, etc. And firstly, I'm looking at these beans. Last year, these beans were pretty much a write-off already with chocolate spot. And this year, they're looking pretty clean. So there's nothing really hugely to worry about there at the moment. It has been a bit cold and damp recently. But it hasn't been continuously cold and damp, and we're due for some warm weather coming next week. So as far as sort of continuous chocolate spot weather is concerned, we haven't had that, and there's quite a few flowers on these beans. The one thing that's really noticeable this year is that everything is really short, so I don't think it's going to be very tall crops this year, which is fine. And the only thing with beans, we've got beans right down here near the ground. Sometimes they're quite difficult to harvest, but I prefer that than having tall beans covered in chocolate spot, which is what we had last year. So so far beans are still looking good. These are some oats on one of our contract farms, some spring oats. They were harrow combed when they were about a 3-leaf stage, and now they're obviously a lot bigger than that now. And we've been waiting to undersow these. As you can see, undersow them with a fertility building ley, but also a pollen and nectar mixture. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of bindweed in here, which we'll be able to harrow coat them quite aggressively when we go in with this undersowing mixture. But I'm not sure that it'll do a lot of damage to those bindweed plants, but it might pull one or two out. So it's a bit wet to do that today, but hopefully after the weekend, with some dry weather on the way, we'll be able to get on harrow comb this for the last time, as well as undersow it with our pollen and nectar fertility building mix. This is an organic crop of winter triticale. We put this triticale in slots where we've had bad blackgrass in these fields, and although you can see some blackgrass in this field in front of me, the triticale really has sort of got on top of it. The other reason why I'm here is because this corner of this field has got some bad wild oats in it, and actually I would say that they're not as bad as they normally are, but there still are some wild oats here. But we've got our team of rogers coming. They're not starting next week, they're starting the week after, but as you can see, these oats have got a long way to go before they're going to be rogable. They really need to be just sort of coming out on ear, and I reckon they're about 2 weeks away from that. So I'm going to have to find some other jobs for the rogers to do until they're ready. The other interesting thing is that the triticale is earlier maturing than some of our wheats, and as you can see here, the triticale is either in boot or just bursting out of its boot and just coming into ear, as you can see from this one here. That's a good sign, but it's still, way later than we were last year, possibly at least 2 weeks later than we were last year. So this is a crop of winter wheat, and as you can see, it's not as competitive, it's not as tall as the triticale, so already you can see that it's got a lot more blackgrass in it, to the extent that actually we're going to use our weed surfers next week to try and trim some of these heads off these blackgrass plants. It's flowering at the moment. As you can see the blackgrass flower there. The little flecks of yellow on there are the blackgrass flowers. So we need to get those cut. There's also 1 or 2 volunteer beans in here, which are left over from last year, but I'm not really too worried about those. But you can see that the wheat is, not as competitive as the triticale. And also the other thing is that, it's nowhere near, with the ear coming out of the plant yet. Sorry, I'm just trying to get it somewhere. You can actually feel it. It's somewhere down here actually at the moment. And so it's a way, a way away from coming on ear. The other thing I just wanted to show you was that this has been undersown with our fertility building mix, or our pollen and nectar mix. This was sown earlier on because a winter crop is more forward than spring crops. The spring crops, as I said in my earlier clip, will be done next week. But you can see here these little clover plants just germinated here, which is a good sign. With all the other speedwells and stuff which sits in the bottom of the crop, a lot of conventional farmers will be spraying that speedwell out, but to be quite honest, it's not doing my crop any damage, so I'm quite happy to have it sitting there. But the most important thing is that the clover has germinated, which is great. So that'll be the start of our next fertility building phase for this field, which will also help us get on top of a bit of this black grass as well. This is our crop of spelt. We've got about 20 hectares of spelt this year, and this is a brief look at it, and you can see that actually this crop looks pretty clean as well, with not much black grass in it. And spelt, like triticale, is very competitive. Certainly in the early stages it grows very tall. It's got a nice big broadleaf leaf on it, which helps shield out the black grass. And in contrast to that, the field next to it here, which has got some winter oats in it, and this is covered in black grass, which is disappointing because winter oats are usually very competitive as well, but for some reason our oats this year have really struggled to get through the winter, the cold winter, and they've always looked very backward, and in fact no more competitive than the wheat has been. And as I say, one of the reasons for growing them was because they are more competitive. They've got a broader leaf than the wheat, and it shades out so weeds and black grass, but this hasn't worked in this case, and I think it's because of the cold winter, and I have a feeling that our spring oats are going to do as well as our winter oats this year. But this also is a field that we will be getting our weed surfers onto next week, trying to trim the tops off these black grass heads to stop them seeding. This is just a quick look at our clover that we undersowed last year. This is pure red clover, and I think, as I said in one or two of my other clips, is that we're not going to be doing just pure red clover anymore. We're going to be doing a mixture of different legumes to fix nitrogen. One, because sometimes, even though the red clover here has been fantastic and it established really well, sometimes it's a bit difficult to establish, and I feel that if we put in a different mixture of trefoils and clovers and red and white and burstfoot trefoil and the like, and a tiny little bit of grass, we are going to get a better or a more sort of risk-free fertility building lay. But anyway, I'm really pleased with this clover this year. It's looking absolutely fantastic. Unfortunately, these when it really gets going, if it warms up next week, the sheep won't be able to keep on top of it, and eventually we'll have to cut it, and it'll be cut and mulched, and then we plough it back into the soil. We don't remove anything from the farm at all without replacing it, so if clover is cut and sold, which we actually haven't done, we would always only do that if we could replace it with something. And similarly with straw on the farm, we don't export any straw from the farm because we don't have livestock on the straw to replace that straw with, so everything is ploughed back in, and it's just the grain that is harvested. And lastly, the one job we can get on with today, the working the fields, as in the arable fields, is just a little bit too wet today, but what we can do is we can cut these paddocks that are coming for wood pasture. We've cut them once before for this black grass, but only just managed to top the tops off it. We're starting to do that again today. Also, I think I said that we had to undersow it again with some more clover, because a lot of the clover that we established in the autumn was killed by the cold winter. Although you can see one or two bits of clover in there, the good news is you can also see some more clover that we undersowed germinating, which is a good thing. But I'm not really sure if, because this is going to be permanent pasture, that we should be really worrying about this blackgrass too much, because of course it's an annual weed, and this ground's not going to be ploughed again. It's just going to be grazed or cut. But I think maybe cutting it and getting rid of it may give the other sort of grass species we want a bit more light and a bit more chance to grow. So that's just a bit of a roundup of what's going on the farm this week.